Okay, welcome to my classroom. This is Mr. Getman, and this is the video substitute for the usual open house. Although I've been doing this long enough to where I've got a pretty good idea of what most of the questions are going to be. So I will try and address them, but if I miss something, there is my email address that you can send me an email and ask the question. I will be glad to answer it. I will note that if I have not received like parent name, phone number, email address, that sort of thing, if I've not received that from you yet, I sent a form that showed up as a text in many of the phones, and I got a little more than half of my students, their parents responded that way, and I've done texting with the Talking Points app. And I probably will be starting working on the phone trying to get the rest. But if you've not heard from me, I am interested in your, especially your email address, because within a week or two, I'm gonna move to all email contact with parents, and you'll see some of that coming up in this description here. Now, what to bring to class? First and foremost is a good strong 3-ring binder. I will be handing out notes and worksheets for just about every single topic. And by the time we get to the end of the year, you're going to have about an inch of paper from my class alone. So I know this is, we're supposedly going paperless as a society, but I've come to the conclusion that nothing beats writing it down on a sheet of paper as far as learning is concerned, and being able to find it in a notebook. Because if all you do is take pictures and you have 200 different files, trying to find a particular document in the midst of 200, that gets frustrating real easily. Whereas just flipping pages in a notebook, that's a lot less so. So anyway, highlighters and colored pencils, they're not a requirement, but they are a suggestion on my part. Students have already noticed that I do a lot of color coordination with my notes. The right angle on this drawing and the right angle on that drawing match, or they have some sort of relationship, and this is what we talk about. And color coding helps us to see the relationships in the different parts of whatever drawing or whatever graph that we're looking at. As to college ruled paper and graph paper, I would suggest having maybe a small handful of both. Not a whole lot, but occasionally I'll ask them, pull out a sheet of paper and let's do this. Or, they may want a sheet of graph paper to actually work out for themselves. I know that some people are more visual than others, and, they need to be able to sketch it out on a sheet of paper and see what they're dealing with for the problem. And so I would highly encourage students to have at least a few sheets of graph paper in their notebook. Now, as to other supplies, I do keep, matter of fact, I have a very large tissue box in 3 different corners of the room. So there's plenty of that to go around. I do have a pencil sharpener and a little jar of pencils on one of the back walls that students can use the pencil sharpener. And as far as I'm concerned, the pencils, some of them come out of my pocket, some of them come from parent donations. But I tell the kids, we are in the age of COVID, so if you borrow it, you keep it. Okay, don't put it back. Let's not start that. But at the same time, I ask them, please don't come in every day and drain me dry. And as to the hand sanitizer, there is a machine inside the classroom right by the front door, an automatic dispenser. And if that ever runs dry, before I can get the maintenance to refill it, I have a backup, little handle, push handle thing like you're seeing there in the picture. So I do have just in case. Calculators, probably the TI-84 is the best suggestion. Now there's the TI-84 Plus and the Silver and all sorts of different editions, and it really does not matter to me which one. They're all just extra whistles and bells that you're basically paying for. for my money, I would go to Craigslist or I would go to Facebook Marketplace, and I would look at some of the stuff for sale there, because there are some folks where the parents bought this thing and their kid used it for 4 years, and now they're done with it, and so they're looking to sell it. And you'll get some of the, and if you go to Walmart and buy one brand new, you're going to pay $80, $100 for something like that. But you can generally find a good one for $30 or $40 on some of these used sites. Now, on the right there is 2 apps for the phone. The top one is iPhone, and the bottom one is for Android. These are very good lookalikes that put TI-84 actually on your smartphone. The only downside of this is that I can't allow students to use this in a quiz or a test situation. Now, I will have either 10 or 20 extra calculators in the classroom assigned to this room. That will happen hopefully about the time that you're watching this. But also understand that I have 30 kids in the classroom, so 10 or 20 is only going to go but so far. So the ones that are able to, and especially a Math 2 student is going to want something like this to carry them through Math 2, through Math 3, and all the way into Math 4. So there's definitely going to be a use for it there. The syllabus is actually under Google Classroom. You will find it there, and I'll show you where in just a minute. About the only real takeaway from the syllabus is the 60-30-10. Tests are 60%, quizzes are 30%, and homework is 10%. And that's something that the math department has, I won't say it's 100%, but I would say 90% of the classrooms are adhering to those standards. So I'm doing that with both my Math 2s and my Honors Math 4s. Google Classroom. Generally, how do you get in is I send you an invitation. Now, I send the invitation to the students through their student email account, and they click accept, and it lets them in, and then they can go from there. As a rule, that's not going to let them into Classroom until they actually log in with Wake ID, with PowerSchool, as it were. And so if there are issues with, usernames or passwords, getting into Wake ID, I can help with that. I can help the students with that. I can reset passwords. I'm not going to be much help on parent accounts, although if you do not have one, I can direct you to where you need to go to sign up for one. But in any case, with Google Classroom, when they log in, they're going to be looking for the classwork tab. That's where they're going to find things that are helpful. Now, at the very top is usually going to be the most current unit, which right now that's Unit 1. And there will usually be a definition sheet to go along with the unit. And there will be extra resources. I do want to talk about that in a second. Those extra resources, that is like a Word document with links. And the links will take you to Khan Academy for extra practice in some of the different topics. And it will also, you've got links to YouTube on some of the different topics that I discuss in the classroom. Now, I kind of go by the idea that, yes, I'm a good teacher, but it is possible that a student can listen to me teach a lesson and still not get it. And so here is the opportunity for them to go and look up a YouTube on the same topic and hear somebody else teach it from a different vantage point. And I actually am not so arrogant enough to think that, they have to get it with my teaching. I'd like to think they will, and if they ask questions, I can, change my direction and, try and make it so that they do understand. But ultimately, there are these YouTubes in case, they get home and they realize I really don't get this. Some of those extra resources will give them some videos to watch. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about in Google Classroom is the journals. Every week, I ask students to write a certain number of words. It usually will appear Sunday afternoon, and it will be due Friday night at 11:59. Now, you're looking at topic number one, me after high school. That's kind of a student introducing themselves to me and giving me an idea of where they want to go after school. What career they want to look into. The current topic for this week, my math autobiography, is them telling me the story of themselves when it comes to math. What does your math history look like? Tell me about what it's like learning math and doing math. And in any case, the math autobiography is the one that is the current topic. And each week there'll be a different topic. You can see what's, the next 2 weeks. The kids can't see that yet, but they'll, it's scheduled to open on Sunday afternoon. Then there's the project. This quarter project is the fact that they have a mathematician that they have chosen, and they're supposed to find 3 cool facts on their math and 3 cool facts on their life. And those 6 facts they're supposed to put together in a video that is 60 to 90 seconds long, and make it creative. Don't just sit there and read, cards into a phone or something like that. Try and create something, interesting to share those facts. And you can see there are some sample videos. I've got some samples from previous students to give them an idea on, what are the possibilities here. The very bottom is a video recording of me talking about the nuts and bolts of the project. And then up at the top there, postscript here, there's first stage is to submit the script of what it is they're going to do creatively, and make sure that I cannot clearly identify the 6 facts in that script, or at least, list them separately or something. And that is due September 17th. And down at the very bottom is what I call the getting started. This is, kind of the day one stuff. The video is actually very similar to what you're watching right now. There's an AB calendar. There's a campus map down there. There's the syllabus that I talked about. And so all of this is on Google Classroom. Now, one of the other things that I actually asked students for 3 things on their phone. One is Google Classroom, because there may come sometimes when I ask them to pull out their notebook and find a particular page and take a picture and send it up to Classroom. So they'll need Classroom on their phone just so they can be able to send it on their phone. They also need Kahoot. Now, sometimes I notice I've got students bringing in like iPads and laptops and that sort of thing, and I'm okay with that. They can do Kahoot on that too. There's an address, kahoot.it, or they can do the Kahoot app on their phone. Either way is fine. But we're going to have Kahoot quizzes, which are going to look something like this. This is a typical question from my Math 2 that I gave them. This was actually a Math 1 skill that I asked them about as sort of a practice. And, they've got the 4 different colors for the 4 different answers. And they've got a clock on the left as far as showing them how much time. Now, what will happen is as we progress through the quarter, let's say that I teach notes 1A one day, next time they come back to class, they're going to have a Kahoot of 4 questions based on what happened in the notes. And this is not as much an I gotcha, those kind of questions, as it is, I just want to see if they've got the basic idea. And what I will do is in the course of a quarter, I will have 10 Kahoot quizzes, 4 questions each. That's 40 questions. And what I will do as what I'm asking them to do for a grade is, if out of the 40, if the Math 2 kids can get 24 correct, and if the honors kids can get 28 correct, out of the 40, I will call that 100 for a quiz grade, which that is actually feels very generous on my part. Uh, that allows them to miss some. Now, I will say this, there is no making up Kahoots. If they miss class, they miss it. And so this also allows for some extra days in there that, if they have a doctor's appointment or something like that, they can still get the 24 or the 28 as the case may be. And if they manage to get over and above the 24 or the 28, then there's a possibility of adding some extra points to a test grade. So that kind of still keeps them in the game, even if they achieve, the minimum level. Now, Remind.com, this is for all of my classes and my homeroom. It's got a different code for each class. I will say this, I welcome parents to join on this. I definitely want the students to be on Remind.com. As a matter of fact, I really would prefer that they have it set up on their phone, because a lot of times I'll give you, for instance, on the day that I'm recording this, I was right up to the bell with notes, and I didn't get a chance to hand out the homework before everybody was out the door. So somebody's going to get a double shot of homework on the next class. But Remind gives me a chance to message those students and say, listen, if you want to go online and pull down a copy of this and get it done now, I won't hold you responsible for it until this later date. But if you want to avoid a situation of double homework, go ahead and get it done now. And that way, when we come back to class, you'll only have one set of homework to catch up with. And that's just a for instance. If we've got a storm coming through and the school decides to close the next day, I've been known to do that. We had one Wednesday afternoon that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the school system decides to close the next day because of some hurricane coming toward us that they weren't expecting. And I turned around and notified all everybody on Remind that, we have no school tomorrow. So these are some of the things that I use Remind for. The projects, I've already discussed the first quarter project. These are just some of the other projects. Third quarter, I will likely be doing string art. And, obviously my expectations are going to be different for Math 2 and Math 4, because one is more advanced than the other one. But still, I feel like everybody is capable of doing some level of string art. The one on the right looks like a Christmas ornament, and what it is that during second quarter, which ends usually around Christmas, I have a December decoration project where you are supposed to create a decoration that is appropriate to the month of December, that is screamingly mathematical, like this little guy that you see on the right with all of the pentagons and hexagons and that sort of thing. You would not find something like that on a shelf in Walmart. That's the thing, is that this has to be screamingly mathematical. And, we'll go over the details of that when the time comes. But that just kind of gives you an idea of where I'm going with some of these projects, is that it ties in. It gives them a chance to, play with some art, but also at the same time, there are mathematical skills that are needed to make this look right. I have returned to the idea of taking a very large Indian head penny and flipping it at the beginning of class. And the idea is that if homework was due that morning in class, if I flip heads, I will walk around and check it for a homework grade. Tails, I don't. And so that kind of cuts my load in half. I'm only going to have grades roughly half the time. But that also puts it on the students that they have to have it ready every time, because you never know. And I feel that that's a healthy thing. Now, the dum-dums I usually walk around with dum-dums in my pocket. And if somebody, if we're having a discussion in a lesson and somebody says something that's a real stretch, I'm like, wow. And I'll toss them a dum-dum for thinking outside the box, thinking 3 steps ahead kind of thing. But then I would always have those students that would say, Mr. G, I just don't think that way. I'm lucky to keep up with you. I'll never get a dum-dum. And I tell them, you watch me at the board. You're taking good notes. You're watching what I'm doing. And if you see something that looks like a mistake, Mr. G, wasn't that supposed to be squared instead of cubed? If I make a mistake and step away from it, it's fair game. And if you catch me at a mistake, I'll give you a sucker for that. So and I do have the rule of 1 sucker a day. So you don't have the one genius in the room that's just racking in the suckers. Share the wealth there. Let some other folks have a chance at it. But these are the ways that I keep things interesting and keep the students engaged. Now, I am going to be switching. I've been doing a lot of texting with parents as far as the Talking Points app. And I'm going to, as soon as I get emails from everybody, I'm going to switch over to almost exclusively email. And you're going to see an email from me on a weekly basis, usually like Friday, Saturday, somewhere over the weekend. I will send out the email to parents and the student email accounts alike that talk about things like upcoming deadlines. Here's what to expect in the week. Sometimes I'll talk about school policy, as in you need to be sure that you do this next week. Like, for instance, here I did a clipping out of something I did last April in a parent email, and that I sent out to all of the parents. And it talked about the pre-ACT that we were going to be giving to the 10th graders and kind of giving direction on that. And then I talked about a quiz that had been sent out over the weekend. That was, this was when everything was online, right? And so they had an online quiz. So at this point, so long as we can stay in the building and COVID doesn't drive us home, I intend to do paper quizzes and paper tests. So that much will be changed. And then it talks about the 4th quarter project, which students were asked to choose a career earlier this week, and their assignment will be to research questions. And it's like, where's the math in this career, and what's it going to take for you to get to what it is you want to do? That's kind of the gist of the 4th quarter project, and we'll do more details when we get closer to it. Now, usually in the course of the email, I will drop one of these calendars on everybody. And right now, this ostensibly this recording is set to be distributed on Thursday, September 2nd. And so in the coming weekend, if I had been sending out emails to parents, this is what the calendar would look like. And, hopefully at some point you have a sense of, all right, my child has math during this block. And I've got it set up as, like 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B, and so on. So you can kind of get an idea of when the Kahoots are coming up, because again, those are collectively involved in a grade. You can see when the tests are going to appear. You look all the way to the end, and you see that the quiz is starting to appear in class 2A. It's kind of funny because even though Math 2 and Math 4 are completely different courses, it seems like the when they take the quiz, when they take the test, they seem to track together. And I think that part of that is the way that I've aligned the materials, how many topics I want to treat before I stop and take a test. And that usually the magic number is 3. 3, sometimes 4, sometimes every once in a while 2. But anyway, so that's you'll get one of those every week. There's actually a copy of this up on my board in the classroom that the kids, every time they come in here, they can look up and see, where they're at, what's coming for them. After a while, they kind of get used to looking at it and figuring out, here's the block that I need to focus on in this calendar. All right, and that is largely the end of it. I can't think of anything else that I need to add at this point. I would just simply wrap up by saying, there's a lot of information and materials on Google Classroom that you can find there. And if there is, and I will be establishing a formal grading policy. We actually had administrative conversations last week, and so teachers are now trying to figure out how to flesh that out within their own professional learning teams. So you're probably going to hear more about grading policies in the next few days, and I should have mine shortly, but that's something that I will share as an email, and I'm hoping within the next week or two to start those weekly emails with parents. I may not have all 180 sets of parents yet, but I'll start with what I've got. I'm having to go to the phone and start calling parents that I couldn't get with the text. So I think 25 minutes is long enough. So I will let you go, and like I say, email me if you have any questions.